Hello everyone, Michael Bretti here from Bretti Musical Instruments. I've got a really insane ocarina unveiling for the month of December for this year, and this is probably going to be the last ocarina unveiling of the year. So I'll be wrapping up December with a really incredible build. I say that often, pretty much for most of the ocarinas that I unveil. However, I believe that this is definitely up there as one of my most insane builds yet, my most figured build, certainly the most expensive build I've unveiled to date, really showcasing some master grade, stunning selection of some really classic North American hardwoods. So this is a real treat to have been able to work on this particular build. So without further ado, I'd like to give a first look and listen to batch number 18 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas from Bretti Musical Instruments. So over the course of this video, I'm going to be diving into the really incredible wood selection for these ocarinas, taking a close look at the woods and the figure in them, talking about the background and the history and the evolution of this build, giving some sound samples and talking about the dynamics, and then closing out with a song demo at the end. So this batch consists of two custom base C4 ocarinas, serial numbers 47 and 48. So this is the second custom base C4 build that I've completed, and I actually kind of worked on this in parallel with the prior custom base C4 batch. So if you saw the prior unveiling video for batch number 17, which was out about a couple weeks ago, which used a selection of curly old growth redwood and spalted ambrosia maple. This particular build actually follows a very similar theme with woods. So it does use two woods, actually the same species of woods. It uses redwood and maple. So those two builds are very similar in the sense that they use the same type of woods. However, the figure is very different from the two. The response is different from the two. Both are equally beautiful, but really showcases kind of, even with a selection of a couple of woods, just how much variety and diversity you can get within the figuring of the woods. So like most of my custom batch ocarinas, the customer reached out to me over the summer for this particular build. They actually take lessons from a prominent figure in the ocarina community, and they had reached out to me because the player had sampled a bunch of my ocarinas and actually let the student who was taking lessons in person play some of the ocarinas. They really liked the ocarina, and they were really excited to potentially talk about getting a custom base ocarina build. So again, like the prior build at the time, I hadn't completed a base C4, but I told them, I'm working on that design. I've actually got a standard batch C4 in the works and another custom C4 that I'm going to be developing. So I'll put yours right in the queue, and as soon as the C4 is ready to go, I'll begin cutting woods. And in the meantime, we were able to plan out the woods, secure the selection of woods, and then move forward on the build. So I was actually away on travel when the customer had reached out to me. I was actually over in South Korea visiting my wife's family with her and my daughter. So I was still, working on the design, the layout, and sourcing the woods, still while overseas, while working with this customer. So the first question that I always ask my customers, and that's the central theme of what I do, is, if you could have any woods in the world, what would you have for your, ultimate dream ocarina? What would be your favorite woods? And immediately the customer knew, right what they wanted. They really loved maple, and they wanted a flame or tiger maple ocarina build. So that was particularly exciting because I had worked with a lot of figured maple before, and this was kind of a chance to explore some even more figured options in that realm of curly and flame and tiger maples. So browsing around, I knew when they said they wanted a maple, I immediately thought there's a really amazing supplier that I've looked at in the past who specializes almost exclusively in figured maples. And one of the things they actually do in particular is torrifying or flame roasting woods. So they had an absolutely just unbelievable selection of torrified tiger maple that was just utterly stunning, and was something that I had been really dreaming of making an ocarina with myself, but I haven't had a chance to actually do it. So those are some of the most intensely figured maples that I've seen for the particular size that I needed for these ocarinas yet. So I forwarded over a whole bunch of options from that supplier, and the customer really loved the look. There's a range of options. So there's the standard maple, and then there's the lightly roasted maple, and then a more dark roasted maple. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the torrifying process is the process of actually roasting woods at a high temperature in a low oxygen environment. And what that does is that kind of bakes the woods throughout the entire thickness of the wood. So it's not really kiln drying them, but it's kind of changing the molecular structure. Almost, it's caramelizing the sugars and the fibers in the grain in the wood itself, roasting it, kind of changing its properties, so it actually ends up being a harder and more durable and resistant wood if done properly, and also helps bring out the beauty and the colors, especially if you get a nice darker roasted wood from someone who's really good at it and knows how and specializes in it, and does a good job with it. So I had immediately looked to secure that wood, and for that particular wood, it was a little bit thinner than I typically needed. So I told the customer, this is an absolutely stunning selection of wood. They don't exactly have the thickness I need, so we're going to have to laminate up. So if you have any type of lamination color in particular you'd like to pair with the maple, we can definitely explore that. So for this particular build, because it was such an intensely figured maple, I immediately told the customer, for something this insane, really the best option for the mouthpiece from either the cedar selection or the figured redwood selection would be to go with that figured redwood. And the customer said that would be great. That wouldn't be a problem at all. So we went with the figured redwood. And the customer then suggested, which I thought was an absolutely brilliant idea, something that I hadn't thought of myself before, is, since we're going with a redwood mouthpiece, can we have a matching redwood stripe? And I thought that was a really awesome idea, because I've typically done stripes. I've done maple stripes, I've done wenge stripes, I've done bloodwood, padauk, purple heart. I've done a whole bunch of different contrasting stripes that are different from the body and the base, the body and the top and the mouthpiece. But actually having that matching redwood stripe that ties into the redwood mouthpiece, especially with that rich color of the maple, I thought was a really fantastic idea. So I found a few options for the redwood, a couple different shades. We decided to go with a little bit of a darker shade of redwood for the stripe, and then the final selection was the top of the wood. So the customer still wanted maple, and because we were going with a darker roasted maple for the bottom, a customer decided that they actually wanted a lighter unroasted maple for the top, which I thought was actually a really neat combination, to have this contrast between a dark roast maple and a more lighter cream colored maple for the top. So I looked through a whole bunch of suppliers. I found a really amazing selection of luthier grade, master figured flame maple for the top. I presented a bunch of different options. The customer selected their favorite, and we went from there. So after I worked out the details of the first C4 and verified that, I made my final tweaks for this design and the prior design and moved forward on the rest of the build. So now getting into it, we're going to take a look at the actual woods themselves. So this is, again, Ocarina number 47. So I'm going to start with the back of the wood, the body, because this, again, sets the theme of the Ocarina. And this is not only one of the most just stunning and figured Ocarina bodies I've done yet, but this is probably the most figured maple I have used for virtually any instrument I built. And I built a lot of instruments in the past. I've used maple for a whole bunch of stuff, but this is just mind blowing. I get really excited about woods. I get really passionate about them. In these videos, I kind of rant on about the woods. But there's good reason as a woodworker, a luthier, someone who builds the instruments and stuff. Just seeing figure like this is a real privilege, to have the opportunity to build an instrument like this for someone else. So this is a look at kind of the darker roasted torrified tiger maple. You can see just that absolutely insane ripple. The iridescence of this maple is just absolutely just overwhelming. And I don't think the camera really does justice to it until you actually see it in person. But that iridescence, that rippling, along with that really rich golden roasted maple color, it just really accentuates that tiger flame figure in it just so well. There's also a lot of really beautiful veining running down with the grain through this. So you have the just insane ripple, just fiery, just flaming ripple moving across the body, and then you have these beautiful grain lines just crackling down the body. It's just, again, this is just master grade torrified maple. One thing that I really also enjoyed about working with this maple too was that actually working with the maple, it gives off a really nice aroma of like roasted pecans or roasted walnuts. Just cutting into it, sanding it, it just gave off this amazing roasted nut smell, which I thought was really fascinating. I also found that this torrified maple in particular is just absurdly tough wood. It's so much tougher than any other maple I've ever encountered. I've worked with a lot of really tight maple burls, which were tough, but this was just another level maple. This really didn't even feel like maple. It worked beautifully, but it is just so tough, so hard, and just is just a much tougher, definitely the toughest maple I've ever worked with. Just cutting into it and just working with it, it just it takes an absolutely beautiful polish, but it is really, really tough stuff. It definitely felt like a much harder, tougher wood, like something like akin to marble wood or something that I've used in the past. That's just really just tough to dig through. So that was also kind of another interesting surprise working with this maple, is just how insanely hard this maple is. In contrast with the prior batch on the Spalted Ambrosia maple, that was the softest maple I've ever used, and that just felt like sponge. But this was just like carving into rock. But even though it was a little bit tougher to work, it's I mean, it speaks for itself. It's just absolutely just unbelievably stunning color. Then you have that iridescent tiger striping just running around the body. It's just unbelievable. I mean, that those curl bands are just so tight, so iridescent. It just moves so amazingly in the light. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Next, you can see we have the redwood stripe between the two maples. So the redwood stripe in the middle here matches the redwood mouthpiece. And for the redwood mouthpieces, I get redwood from a few different suppliers. And like any tree, they have different variations in grain and shades. Some are a little bit more brown, some are a little bit more red, light or dark. So I specifically went through my stash and paired a mouthpiece block to a color as close as I could to the figured redwood stripe going through. So it has kind of that really nice, matched stripe between the mouthpiece and that accent, which I thought was, again, a really, really cool idea. And that's probably something I'm going to explore in the future again as well. Again, I had not thought about using redwood at all for a accent stripe. And again, this goes back, and I say this a lot in every custom ocarina unveiling video. One of the awesome things about working with people from all over the world with all different tastes and aesthetics and stuff is really finding inspiration from their suggestions and having them come up with their pairings that are ideal for them. And a lot of times are stuff that I wouldn't have thought of myself. So this was a really, really cool pairing. The color palette of the maple and the redwood, I think, just works amazingly, especially kind of this aged redwood and with this really rippling maple with this kind of these golden brown, this lighter cream, this rich, warm, earthy red, really all ties together thematically very nicely. Finally, for the last wood, we have this really, again, just absolutely stunning flame maple top. So this maple is just as curly, just as chatoyant as the bottom wood. Again, it has a really nice contrast. So you have like a really classic whitish cream color of the top, and then that really rich, just absolutely beautiful golden roasted maple bottom. So this makes for a really, really stunning showpiece ocarina. Like, this is something that if you put on your mantle or in your collection of other ocarinas or instruments, I mean, this is definitely a really wow instrument that stands out. And, you know, again, as my job as an instrument maker is to bring out the beauty in the woods. I mean, I do a lot of work to make these instruments as beautiful as I can, but a lot of credit has to go to nature and just the unbelievable figuring that occurs as these trees grows, and being able to tap into that resource and have the privilege of working with such beautiful woods now, and being able to make these for other people. So now I will give a sound demo of this ocarina. So I'm going to go up and down the scale so you can hear kind of what this ocarina sounds like. So this is the scale of number 47 with a bit of improvisation. So, I've been finding as I go along further, making larger and deeper ocarinas, I've come to really love deeper ocarinas more and more. I've always liked deeper tone instruments, whether it's deeper flutes, deeper Native American flutes, or just whatever. I've always liked that kind of deeper, bassy type tone. This ocarina has a really beautiful, rich, resonant tone. It plays super smoothly, super effortlessly throughout the whole range. The high notes are clear. They play effortlessly. They play beautifully without having too much breath pressure. The breath curve is pretty typical. It's a pretty balanced, slightly rising breath curve. So it starts a little bit softer at the low end and rises up kind of evenly towards the top end, with again that top end being really easy to play and speak. You do not have to push these ocarinas that much at all to be able to hit those notes in tune, and it just plays very clearly. This particular batch is a little bit more breathy, but I actually kind of like that with this particular ocarina. It just has a really beautiful, just warm, resonant tone with a little bit of that breathiness inherent to ocarinas, and that really kind of classic, less hollow sound than the transverse, but more flute-like tone that you get with the inlines. So this is just a really, not only a fun one to look at, but a really fun one to play. I mentioned in my prior videos that for the larger sizes like this, the bass sizes, the right thumb hole and the left pinky hole do get a little bit larger than my other typical tenor and alto sizes. For this particular batch, I was actually able to find a really good balance that balances the breath pressure and breath curve going up the scale, and that pinky hole. So the pinky hole is a little bit bigger. However, it is pretty comfortable to cover. It does take a little bit of practice, but it plays very smoothly and easily. And once you get the technique down, it'll play very effortlessly. I also implemented kind of my medium range hybrid type grip, so it's a little bit more spread and offset than my typical tenor and alto ocarinas. So you can see it's a little bit more curved. I find this is a particularly comfortable type of grip for these larger ocarinas, and especially, you know, supporting these larger ocarinas, having a little bit of a wider grip is very good for supporting it. It's a bass ocarina. The full size of this ocarina, I believe, is about 9.25 inches. So you get a really beautiful size for this ocarina that can show off the amazing beauty of the woods. Even though it's a bass ocarina, it's still pretty light. It's very comfortable to hold. So there's no worries about it being very heavy compared to possibly some larger clay bass counterparts. And it's definitely just a very fun, super smooth, beautiful playing ocarina. Next, moving on, we have the second ocarina of the set. So this is number 48. So again, I'm just going to go over the woods and then give some sound samples of this ocarina. So starting out with the back, we have again the absolutely just mind-blowingly stunning roasted torrified tiger maple. So I got the darker roast maple from the supplier. It's just absolutely, just the movement of the grain is just so incredible. Again, this is probably potentially the most figured piece of wood I've used yet for ocarinas. It is reflected in the price. This is definitely my most expensive set yet. But the level of these woods and for the size of this ocarina is just so stunning that it's just really a master level wooden bass ocarina, single chamber ocarina, I think. So you have the beautiful curl roasted golden color the figure. You have a little bit of that, again, that beautiful veining in the grain running down the body. That just intense tiger maple wraps around the body, just absolutely just beautifully. So you get just as much tight curl in figure in both ocarinas. Again, you have the redwood stripe that matches the redwood mouthpiece. So both the mouthpiece and the stripe for both ocarinas are figured salvaged old growth redwood. So they do have a little bit of figuring in them and chatoyance in them. Both of them are matched with the mouthpiece and the stripe. So you get kind of that beautiful earthy brownish red type hue, a little bit of chatoyance in that as well that cuts between the maples. And then finally you have just absolutely insane regular flame maple top. So the curl on this is just stunning. It's super tight, and it's just a real joy to hold and look at. So giving a sound sample now for this, I'm going to go up and down the scale and play a little bit of improvisation. So this is number 48. So in terms of breath curve, tone response, and dynamics, and just the physical figure of both of these instruments, this is probably one of my most, if not my most matched ocarina batch yet, both in terms of aesthetics as well as response and dynamics. The woods for both of these ocarinas are pretty much absolutely identical. The figuring, the tightness, the curl is super even throughout both boards, for the top and the bottom. The color of the redwood, the grain of the redwood, every aspect of both of these ocarinas is just almost identical between the two. They do have a little bit of difference in the grain, but the actual iridescence, the figure, the colors are virtually the same between the two of these ocarinas. So both are equally beautiful in that term. In terms of the tone and response, these are just so incredibly well matched. Typically, I always have some variation. One ocarina might be a little bit more textured, one might be a little bit more open, one might have a little bit clearer upper end, one might have a little bit stronger low end. They're always play beautifully, but they have some slight variations between them. For these two ocarinas in this batch, they play so close together in terms of the breath curve, the tone, the response, and everything that I really almost can't tell the difference between the two. It's just so well matched. Just how they go up and down the scale, how they handle the breath curve, the response, just everything is just so on point with both of these ocarinas that they're almost, you can't go wrong with either one. They will play exactly the same for you. I'd say if I have to really, really, really nitpick between the two, maybe the second one, number 48, might have a tiny, just tiny hint of a little bit more crispness to the tone, while 47 might have a little bit more open breathiness to the tone. But otherwise, it's so subtle, it's so slight that you have to really play them both side by side, back and forth, and really get to know the both of the ocarinas at the same time to really pick up between the differences in the two of them. But otherwise, the back pressure, the curve, everything, the tone is virtually the same, which is kind of a rarity for making these wooden ocarinas by hand. I don't do this stuff by a CNC. It's all hand carved. Everything is hand voiced, done really, really manually. I know for a fact that if I were to implement CNC, which I might do one day, especially for some of the bulk processes, it'll probably improve batch to batch consistency in terms of the exact response and tone, getting them much more paired together. But the voicing at the end of the day still has to be done very carefully by hand, manually. Those adjustments have to be extremely precise, and it has to be a human touch. You can't, even the best recorder makers in the world or other instrument makers in the world, even with all the machining and processes and everything that goes into it, that final adjustment, those final touches is what makes the difference between a mediocre instrument and an exceptional instrument. I feel that both of these are very exceptional inline-based C4s from what I have done so far, and just not only stunningly beautiful, but they just play smoothly, effortlessly, and they play almost identically. So I guess at that point, it really just comes down to whatever your favorite number is in terms of selection for the ocarinas. So that kind of wraps up the overview for these particular ocarinas. Now, to give kind of the final demonstration for this batch unveiling, I'm going to be doing a short demo song. So for this song, I'm going to be doing a rendition of Kakariko Village from Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I did that one before on a custom tenor, a really beautiful custom tenor F4. I think this will be really cool to kind of contrast the bass C4 in a really figured custom wood with that particular song, which has just a nice nostalgic mellowness to it that I think goes well with the bass ocarina tone. So please enjoy this rendition of Kakariko Village. So that wraps up this batch unveiling for this month. So this is batch number 18 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas, consisting of two custom-based C4 ocarinas, serial numbers 47 and 48, made from one of my finest selections of woods yet for ocarinas. So we've got flame-roasted, torrified tiger maple. We've got some really stunning flame maple for the top, and then a beautiful selection of curly redwood for the mouthpiece and accent stripe. So this is a custom build, like my other builds have been in the works for many months now. I'm sure my customer is very excited to get these. So whichever one they select, I'll be sending out to them very shortly. This build is really, really just, it's one of those builds that I have to step back and really think if I want to keep the second ocarina for myself, for my own collection. I do definitely, I could definitely really benefit from the extra sale of an ocarina like this, and I'm sure they would both go to absolutely fantastic homes, especially someone who's a really serious ocarina collector who really loves wooden ocarinas and would like something really stunning to add to their collection. At the same time, I would really love to have this for my own collection. Right now, I only have kept 3 ocarinas for myself, and I'm really itching to add a base C4 to my collection. It might be this, it might be another one. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna have to decide, and I may put this up on the shop shortly afterwards. But I'm really tempted to keep this for myself. If not, then I'm definitely going to be taking inspiration from this build, especially this just really incredible torrified tiger maple, and applying that for another build. I might seriously consider doing a full torrified maple build, or look at doing some other combinations of woods. But this is just a really unique, stunning set that came together really beautifully, and again, really is because of the customer and their input. They're the ones that ultimately selected the woods, from the tones of the woods to the different woods that they wanted, making the suggestion for the the matching accents to the redwood mouthpiece, actually selecting the darker maple and the lighter maple for the different parts of the body. So my job is to take their ideas and make their vision a reality in the best way that I can, with the wood selections and through my craft. So I'm excited to get this out to the customer. I'm excited to really tap into more torrified maple for other builds. Really tempted to keep one of these for myself. Not sure yet, but probably will soon find out in the near future whether or not that occurs. So if you'd like to follow along with more of these efforts, you can check out the Bretti Musical Instruments website. That's brettimusic.com, where I have all my ocarinas listed in the shop that are for sale. Other instruments, general information about ocarinas and shun and other instruments that I've built. Pictures of every build that I've done to date, as well as general ordering information. You can see more up-to-date build updates on the Bretti Musical Instruments Instagram page, where I have pictures of woods that I'm working on, various stages of ocarinas and productions, new instruments in the works and being researched, new woods and everything. So that's a good one if you want to see kind of a little bit of behind the scenes of what goes on into these builds. And then I release general pictures and information and links on the Bretti Musical Instruments Facebook page, as well as right here on the YouTube channel. So this is probably the last build again for this year. I've got a whole bunch of new builds already ready to go for the new year in 2026. I've got brand new sizes of inlines, brand new styles of ocarinas. So I've got a few brand new, totally new types of ocarinas I'm going to be working on. I'm also working on some really experimental, really unusual hybrid instrument combinations that take inspiration from the ocarina and from other areas. I'm going to be working on some other potential designs, some fantasy designs, some other really cool inspired themed designs. And again, a whole bunch of really exciting woods to come. So with that, I want to thank you again for watching this video, and if you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment or just reach out to me directly through my email or through any of the social media or website channels that I'm on, and I'll see you next time.